Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to our March 18th meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5 Land Use, Housing, and Zoning Committee. I'm Nancy Gosho, Chair of our committee. I'm joined by our Vice Chair, Julie Chu, and committee members present tonight. And we'll start with Kevin. Introduce yourself, please.
Kevin Frizz.
Seth Borden.
David Sigmund.
Tristan Haas.
Libby Hutton. Kim McCall.
Murnau Vikram.
And online, do we have anyone online from the committee? Okay, so any items voted on at this meeting tonight will be voted on by the full board at our Thursday, April 9th full board meeting. Before we start our agenda, do any members of the public or committee members have any new Land Use, Housing, and Zoning Committee business items? Online? Julie? No. Seeing none, let's go back onto this meeting. The meeting will run in this order. After each presentation, committee members will ask questions. Then we'll take questions and comments from the public. While there's no time limit on comments, we ask that you speak succinctly and avoid repetition of a prior speaker. Please use the raised hand function and Julie will call on you. After the public questions and comments, we will go into our business session where only committee members and board members can participate in the discussion. No further input from the public unless recognized by me, the chair. Board members, if they're online, will be promoted to panelists for the business session. So our first order of business tonight is the 345 Avenue of the Americas Open Air Cafe renewal. This is a permit application for a 3-year renewal to continue operation of 3 open air cafes previously approved in 2023. The application is not subject to ULURP and does not require a public hearing by our community board, but this is an opportunity for Community Board 5 to submit comments to the Department of City Planning. And our lead committee member on this particular application is Julie Chu. Julie, lead us off, please.
I did walk the site and. Right. Nancy, would you like to? Should we go ahead with this item or?
Okay, we recently had an arrival of city council member Harvey Epstein. Good evening. So we are going to change our agenda and we will have 1345 Avenue of the Americas Open Air Cafe renewal second. So let's go on now to why Mr. Epstein is here tonight. This is regarding reconsideration of the DOT Flatiron Nomad Major Concession draft resolution that was referred back to this committee from the full board meeting for further review and deliberations due to new community member input. The draft resolution is regarding the New York City Department of Transportation and the Flatiron Nomad bid ULURP application to the Department of City Planning to permit the Flatiron Nomad bid to manage the revenue generating concession and subway concessions along Broadway from East 19th Street to West 31st Street. These management activities will fund maintenance of the public space in the Flatiron Nomad Business Improvement District. And our lead committee member is David Sigmund. David, would you lead us off?
I don't really have anything to add. I think we just want to hear from the council member and then consider the additional items.
Okay.
To the previous draft.
Does anyone need a copy of the draft reso that was referred back to us, or do we have it? Can someone?
Yeah.
Julie would like a copy. Anyone else need a copy of the draft reso that was referred back?
You're two.
Okay, and we have representatives online of DOT Flatiron Nomad bid. We're anxiously interested in hearing what you have to say, Mr. Epstein. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah. I don't want to interrupt your meeting, but thank you for taking the time. I really thank you for giving us the time to talk to you about this. We've been talking to DOT a lot and did the bid, just to try to, make sure we're all hearing the same things, and when I was looking at this after it was certified, I think some of the things that kind of jumped out at me are things that we're trying to do in the city and maybe not reflected in this resolution or not reflected in what DOT has been saying. Some of the things we've really been talking about kind of, while Broadway's an amazing place and having more opportunities on Broadway to do concessions, it seems like a great idea. We have to make sure it's in the context of what we're doing, around, climate issues and green initiatives, and I think unfortunately, a lot of the resolution doesn't get to that, like. We have, if we're putting concessions or kiosks there, what are we doing around single-use items? What are we doing about requiring compostable containers? What are we doing about making sure there's composting there? We're spending $150 million on all this infrastructure work. And we want to make sure whatever happens is complying with, the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act or the CLCPA. There's our obligations under state law to do waste reduction and waste diversion, and we want to make sure that every opportunity where we actually are doing those things. I know they talked about doing 2 kiosks, and there's a lot of questions about whether that's sufficient for the location. I know you put in something about a public bathroom, which is, I think, an amazing addition to what we're talking about. They talked to make commitments about publicly available water fountains, which is, I think, which is well needed, because if we want people to be able to fill up their bottles, we want to have water infrastructure. So bathrooms, bottle fillers are really, really important. And then the use itself, and, we all see those like link kiosks on the street, and then the commitments that we've gotten from the city on those kiosks is that 25% of that time or the space that's being operated is made available for the public, whether it's for a community board meeting, a social service provider. I spent 2 months watching Brad Hoylman Siegel's advertising for his inauguration that didn't happen on that day, But those kiosks are a valuable resource because they're on government land and need to have government purpose. So here we have potentially opportunities when they're doing large scale events that are getting safer permits that require commitment. Maybe the community board want to have a table to talk about issue. Maybe there's something happening related to the census that year. They want to be tabling. Maybe there's an early voting like we're doing right now. There's like a special election. So like if there are things happening within the neighborhood, we want to make sure that nonprofits, government and community-based organizations have the ability to be able to use those spaces. So whatever, I'm making it up, but Coca-Cola is doing something right outside Madison Square Park and they want to take the whole stretch and getting SAPO to approve the permit. We want to make sure that our community is getting things in return. So really the commitment on the green, like we show those events are green in a sustainable way. There's no commitments that we've seen so far that requires that, especially at those large scale permitted events, to make sure that those kiosks are green in a way that make sure that it lives the values we're trying to articulate. That's honestly required under state law. There are provisions within their agreements that they don't use styrofoam, which is great, but it's also, I passed a law 3 years ago to bar the use of styrofoam, so whatever. But nothing about single-use plastic, nothing about like how we, how do we like make sure that things are being reusable. I don't tell you how many times I like outdoor dining myself, but I don't know why anyone would have to have a single-use item in an outdoor dining shed, it makes no sense to me. Why are we not requiring them to have reusable items? And so all that could really be baked in here to make sure that we are making sure that we are reducing the waste, making sure there's public information about the waste. The other thing is, they've talked a lot about chairs and public space, but there's nothing about what that notice requirements will look like. And I've had this fight at Astor Place for a long time, and even here, what's public and what's not, what's being used privately by a vendor and what's being made available to the public. And we've seen a lot of restaurants, and no disrespect to them, want to maximize the amount of tables that they have available to the people who are paying customers, and I respect that. But if we required 70% of those spaces to be available to us, because if someone wants to go out to sit outside and have lunch outside, there's nothing that delineates what's public and what's private. And so right now, under DOT regs, 30% now in this proposal, they want to go up to 50%. So I have real issues with that, increasing the non-public space on our public land, but at least some kind of notice to the public what's privately available. to be honest, I've been kicked out of what I've been public space. Because I'm sitting there not ordering anything, and I understand why that vendor wants me to order something, but it's public space, so I think we need to make sure that's clear and delineated within anything that we do, and make sure that that programming is available. Those are the kind of main things that I wanted to do, and then I don't think the bid's opposed to anything I'm talking about here, by the way, and then we talked to them, and they seem really amenable to these changes. And I'd like to see us get on the same page before we, go to Borough Board and it comes before me, the DOT feels like we're all saying the same thing. Those are the things I was talking about.
Okay, so, any questions from our committee around the table here? Libby?
So as the Park Public Citizen Environment Committee, love that you're bringing more
Questions, Libby?
on the environmental thing.
Questions? We have time for comment?
For it,
And Sal, you go.
Thank you for framing it
one of
though.
the things, but
Yeah.
one of the things the committee is looking at, is questions about the temporary, sort of marketing activations that come in.
Right.
And the environmental footprint of that.
Right.
Currently exists, and try to measure like that going forward. So I'm wondering if there's a way to either bake in something about measuring those temporary things in addition to some of these permanent ones. Because some of those activations, so they're making some changes where you can plug in as opposed to using down here.
Right.
But they're also temporary, and sort of how do we track that or measure that? And
Right.
have any ideas around that? It also happens in other places.
Right.
With permits,
Right,
but maybe something not just with this, but bigger, if people look to that at all. And then also some of the environmental capture on stormwater. capture. I
Yeah.
know it's really hard, and
Yeah.
adding more green to this project, they have all heard about this, but I wondered if there's a way to add additional greenery or something of that nature.
you know,
that you could
I
add
think
onto
we,
it.
yeah, I haven't thought about additional green because they are spending all this money, they're redoing it, we could. If you are wanting to add more provisions around additional green space in whatever the final plans are, I'd love to see that, honestly. I'd love to figure out a way to make sure that whatever they're doing is environmentally sustainable. And making sure the staple permits are at least here, have a longer term conversation about staple permits everywhere. But at least here, the bid and SAPO knows that this is an agreement that DOT has with this community, that there's gonna be as green as possible. I mean, there are, green dining rules that are out there that we could, ask them to adopt in the context of this, agreement that DOT is having with the bid that I think would really be helpful for us. And then we can then force the DOT to think more expensively, you said one bathroom, I think one bathroom is great, but maybe this is too long of a stretch for one bathroom and we need to be doing more, and maybe we need to be doing more of publicly available water fountains too, and maybe we need to, I'd love to see that and any more that you'd want to put in. I think those are definitely in line with the values that we share.
So before we get to the next question, DOT, do you have anything you'd like to answer regarding what we've just been talking about? Emily?
I'll just jump in to say that since we spoke with the council member, we also went back in greater detail with our legal team. And so we are able to add, one of the discussions was making sure that some of the specific laws related to like single-use items are incorporated into the agreement between DOT and the bid. And so that is something that we can add and update in the agreement. Currently, the agreement, like it makes reference to the like no styrofoam, but it hasn't been kind of updated specifically since then. But just like reassuring that one kind of overall parameter of DOT's agreement is that it does require the bid and any partner who signs this agreement to comply with all relevant rules, regulations, laws. So there's a catch-all, but we can also be more specific to target some of these environmental goals that the council member raised.
So what about the issue of the green, adding green? You heard that too, they were talking about that as well. That was part of Libby's question.
So I think we're again, this is just for the major concession. It doesn't necessarily like relate to the capital project. It's absolutely our vision for the capital project to bring as much green here as possible. So I think if that's something you want to be reiterating as much as possible, that whenever you have a moment to just comment on your goals for the larger project, we welcome that. And just reminding everybody that we will be taking the project capital design to public workshop later this year for more detailed review, thoughts, feedback, things like that.
But Emily, you can make commitments now to additional green in this process. I guess that's a question. Is you guys open to making additional commitments on additional green space now?
I mean, in that is our goal for this project, yes. It's just like unrelated to the major concession.
In every ULIP I've been involved in my entire life, there are things that are sometimes unrelated to the underlying agreement that gets baked in. So I think that's what I hear from the community board is there a way to bake in additional green space? And it sounds like it's your goal, but I think maybe we need to drill down a little more what that commitments might actually look like.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we'll take that back. Thank you.
Okay, and James Methven, do you have anything? You're representing the bid. Do you have anything to add here or comment or answer?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, James Methven, President, Flatiron Nomad Partnership. Yeah, we've been close touch with DOT and Council Member Epstein on this, and I as the Council Member said, I think our goals pretty much generally align. I mean, we're stewards of the public space first and foremost, and when it comes to the concession area itself and the ability to find the right balance on a daily basis and an annual basis when it comes to any types of activations, use. The end goal is the ability for us to be a steward and be able to maintain the spaces for the public's good in perpetuity as much as possible. So this process is very important for us so that we can continue to devote significant amount of funds into maintaining Broadway as an iconic and world-class public space. But yeah, we definitely see and can align on many of the environmental goals that the council member and DOT have mentioned, as well as just making the space better for the public, whether they're coming to dine there or to use it as a public space for respite, and just great experiences. So yeah.
Okay, next question from the committee is Mernal.
So I'm actually very glad to hear that we're on the same page with regards to seating. When the DOT rule change came in front of this committee, was a while back, I want to say a few months ago. I mean, I had pretty strong opinions on how that 50% cap was too high. And it just went through anyway. What would in your mind, what are you thinking is a good alternate proposal?
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, I think 35% is probably the way as high as I'd go. And then making sure that's delineated in a way that's educating the public. I can't tell any times I've seen a restaurant where they're like, they say this is the public seating, but then they're like, well, this is only for our customers. What do you do in that moment? Because there's no signage, there's no ability to, in that moment, to be like, no, I'm sitting here anyway, And so we just want to make sure that the public is aware of it. We may know more, and I could be kind of an asshole and sit anyway, but most people don't want to do that. They don't want to, and they shouldn't have to experience that. And I understand the restaurant's perspective because they're trying to maximize on a beautiful day, maximize as many people they can sit in their restaurants as possible. But this is the balance. This is New York and it's on our public lands. And I think, really 35% is really as high as I think we should be going, but they could still, if the seat's empty, then someone sits there and orders food. Godspeed,
And then more broadly, if the community board so decided to, I don't know, reiterate our stance on the DOT rule change, is that something we can get your support on?
I mean, I think we're aligned there, and I think, I don't know, in the end, what we'll get from DOT. But they have to get, in theory, a vote from me and vote from you all. So I think we have some conversations and some negotiating power with them, and I think we should use it in a way that benefits the public. And I think James and the bid wants us to benefit the public, and I think they need revenue to take care of the area, but I think this is all a balancing act, and I think we should all strive for as much public space as possible.
I agree.
Comment from DOT, Emily? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we are, our goal at DOT is also to make sure that the space we're carving away from vehicles for pedestrians and cyclists is public in all ways. So everything from the signage to the way we allocate and make sure that we're ensuring for public use and non-exclusive use for the most part makes a ton of sense. And I think, again, every site and location is contextual, and we care a lot about what the community thinks, about what our partner thinks. We want these spaces to be relevant to you all. So again, happy for the feedback that you give here.
And James, from the bid? We have a lot of participants in this discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
wanna-
look, yeah, and I mean, look, we understand, the rule is written, permits up to 50%. That gives some flexibility, but I can assure you that in terms of the space that's currently being utilized for some of the outdoor exclusive dining it's well under that threshold. You also notice, just based on the layout of I think we looked at this when we were together a month or so ago. It's not like one gigantic open space. We're talking about a lot of pedestrian bump outs, other spaces that are really not conducive for any type of concession, but are just included in the size of this entire stretch. That all counts towards the total square footage and the 50%. So most of it's really just not even really concessionable to begin with. But again, at the same time, we're back to what we said earlier and agree on, is that this is maximizing the benefit of public space for the Flatiron and Nomad communities.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Mike?
Councilman, you brought up the single-use items, and DOT is saying that the concessionaire will comply with all city and state laws and regulations. But you're bringing it up because you see there's a gap, or there's something missing?
Yeah, well, that's the first time, I mean, they sent me the concession agreement and it only talked about styrene, so sounds like from what we just heard that they're willing to expand it, and I think what we're trying to do is limit single-use items as much as possible. And so whatever language we can get in here that I'd like to see, that we limit single-use items, and if there is single use, at least it's only compostable, so even if we have compost bins out, and then, we're just doing better by our collective children, my children, our planet. I think there's some really good gains for us here. The bathroom is a big gain, the water fountains are gains, and I don't know if 2 kiosks are the right answer, but maybe there should be more, maybe, if they're doing 2, maybe a third, or maybe a third publicly available water fountain. And I think there's something to be gained here. If you're having a big stretch and you're having people sitting out, and if there's a street fair going on, the more public amenities, I think, for all of us, the better.
Anything from DOT or the bid on that? Or we've talked about that already?
I think we've talked about that already. I will just flag that, the capital project that we're talking about right now only goes to 27th Street, but we'll be launching phase 2, so 28th Street and North. So the kind of additional amenities that the council member is talking about is something that can be kind of revisited and incorporated into like that phase of the capital project. So that's all, very good feedback as we think about the permanent version moving up the corridor.
But James, anything? Okay, so you mentioned, I have a question. The nonprofit accessibility and use of this space, Are you saying that that's in 2 kiosks? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think the kiosks are gonna be rented out to for-profit businesses who will then make a publicly accessible water fountain and maintain that publicly accessible water fountain, so you can refill your water bottles. But on, when those areas being activated, let's say, I just mentioned Coca-Cola before because whatever, they're a big corporation that does events, or, what we did. Last year we had something around the end of the open. We did a big thing in Madison Square Park on the open. Let's say they wanted to close the street. If they're doing things, we want to make sure that there's space available within any SAPO permit or any activity that some of our nonprofits or our community boards or other organizations can also have tabling opportunities at those events to make sure that we're spreading information out about what's happening. I mentioned it could be, censuses every 10 years, elections or, CFB has information about upcoming election. Like there's all these things that are happening in our city that nonprofits need access to space, and this is on our public streets, so why not give them access to space on our public streets when public activities are happening, that are permitted activities.
Do you have a way to quantify that in any way to make it a little clearer? Because it's a very vague, it's an interesting proposal, but it seems a little vague and it could maybe be overlooked unless we can make it more specific.
I mentioned said 25% of whatever permitted area could be set aside for nonprofit.
Okay.
If that's too high, I'm open to that, but like I mentioned before, the kiosk, 25% of that airtime is being sold. 70%, 75% is being sold, 25% is being used by community boards and food pantries and elected officials to advertise whatever events that are happening. So we could use that same framework of saying we did it with the Link kiosk. Why wouldn't we do that with all our, permitted events that are on our public streets or activated, especially in this area where we have some ability to kind of get some commitments from the community.
Yeah, because I think it's important that we quantify it in some way.
Sure, and I said 25% before, but if you think that's a little high, I don't know if it is. I think if we did it for the Link, I don't know why it would be high here,
DOT or the bid, have any comment on that? 25% for nonprofit community board use? No, okay. David Sigmund, you're writing this, adding the revisions. Do you have any questions about that at all?
Nope. I think I'm good. We had, some language that we got in advance, which we'll
Okay.
take a look at, and I'll pick up the comments from the meeting tape and we'll take it from there.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Anybody online? Any comments from the public?
Should be include a marketing activation piece with the guidelines. Like for
Libby, do you have something, a comment now? Because there's no public
Yeah.
comment, so we're
Is
gonna go
that
back into
where-
the session.
Yeah, but the limits, but the environmental piece of it of if they're bringing in temporary stuff. Like similar to the time piece,
Oh,
but specifically to the marketing activation, which is something that
make
we
sure
talked
it's
about.
sustainable.
Yeah, like we've talked about tracking just sort of the environmental footprint of
Mhm.
different events that are happening, whether it's Union Square Park or Bryant Park, and we've been asking. But if we're talking about guardrails for the dining piece of it, that we've talked about this previously in my committee, but we haven't got it together, but it might make sense to include it in this because there will be different brand pop-ups. That's one of the key elements of what the
Yeah.
commercialization is.
I know, totally. I assume we get all that in comment. Yeah, you mean the 10% advertising piece or?
No, that just like if someone is bringing in, like you've got a beauty brand and you're doing a giveaway, like
Right.
what is their footprint of what they're bringing in? What is
Yeah.
the environmental impact of it?
Yeah.
Who gets
And-
oversight over that?
Or like garbage,
And also who gets oversight over that?
yeah, and who's tracking it and
Right,
how are they encouraging it to be less?
Well, it'd be the bid, right?
right, bid, and then we're asking the
Because
bid. to
they're
make sure
management, their
it's-
bid is going to be
right, yeah.
management.
And they're doing our, they probably, for the kiosks, are doing an RFP for events or we working with SAPO to get a event permit. So part of the underlying responsibility is environmental sustainability.
They're actually having guardrails around it, I think, if it's not currently tracked.
Murnau,
Well, I guess when there's a marketing activation within the parks, the community board gets to say. My question is, was there gonna be similar oversight when it's happening on a pedestrian plaza or over Broadway? To your question, so, you know, say for example, Made in Korea or whoever is doing an event on the north end of, on the street and on Broadway, but, you know, past the park. Right now, the community board does not get any oversight over it. Is that, could we maybe ask for that? So that we at least get a heads up.
You think you don't get to see the shape of.
We do, if we. But it's a little bit less.
You wanna get notice of those requests to
We-
SAPO?
We do through a portal, but it's not quite the same, but I think for the environmental, just like, and
We don't get to comment on them.
we can, it's just less effective.
But I
I
mean,
think that for this particular piece, if there's a restriction on the dining piece of it, that having a restriction on the commercial footprint from an environmental perspective of like, sure, you can give away stuff, but it has to be like not in plastic cellophane, or it has to be
Right.
recyclable. If you're doing a hot chocolate thing, it's gotta be compostable, which we ask for, but this
So-
would make it a little bit more of a rule.
And you'd want it to have a more formal role in that, like, so there's an actual notice with opportunity to comment?
So say for example, if there's like music,
Yeah,
something like that, you know, community might have strong opinions on what's allowed and what's not allowed.
yeah.
I'm thinking more for the environmental piece of it.
Oh,
which we
Well,
also
we were
ask for.
talking earlier, there are, noise violations currently in the space. And for residents living along Broadway, and there are people that live
Yeah,
on Broadway, these noise, violations need to be enforced. And, because right now, people can just, set up a loudspeaker and sing into it all day, and no one will say anything to that person. And that might be, very disruptive to people living along that corridor,
But that's an actual violation. My question is.
but there's no enforcement
Right.
by anyone.
so DEP doesn't do anything.
DOT, you mean?
It's no, it's
No,
DEP.
the decibel noise.
Sound is DEP.
Not
They
that
have
I
to-
saw.
They have to see it themselves and they have to witness it themselves. The video is not adequate. They have to show up, which is why the ice cream truck situation.
So if you go, so now if you, let's say on a Saturday or Sunday, Broadway, there are various people that have loudspeaker systems set up, playing very loud music.
And just someone file through all complaints and then DEP have to respond?
I don't even know who we would file it with.
Through one.
I don't know what, I don't have any information. I'm just, it's an observation
Okay.
of having been in the corridor and wondering about how this disturbs residents, because again, keep in mind, we are promoting housing development
Yeah,
along Broadway. We consider this our park,
right.
which should be a tranquil place. Not a lot, it's not Times Square,
Right, yeah.
and it's going to be more and more residential. Hopefully, that's what we want to encourage. Libby?
I just wanted to go back to the first thought of how the implementation of who would implement sort of on the marketing side of it, if it lives with the bid, sorry, James, to add more work, but if it's just, if we are limiting it, maybe tracking of, I don't know, some standard ESG sort of inputs of an environmental footprint, and that then the community board gets a report out of what the environmental like impact was, or how much energy was consumed, or I mean, not where it was farmed and stuff, but something that seems like somewhat reasonable for people to be able to calculate, and that they are kind of tracking that or asking for concessions, that within this area, maybe specifically, if not the whole city, that we have a little bit of insight on reducing that to be zero.
There may not be complaints now about noise, but
Right.
they will come
Yeah,
as
so we.
this becomes more activated.
Sounds like we have to deal with the noise issue and the oversight of the noise issue, as well as doing the environmental issue, and maybe we should be thinking through creatively what we need to put in now. I mean, they won't come to me until June or July, so I have time to kind of fully bake this, so we, you know, obviously you guys, your window is closing in April, but that doesn't mean, you know, borough board, you know, back to city planning, then to me, we have some time to kind of maybe flesh this out a little more, to figure out the more details we want on this at all. Because the noise issue, I think we have to grapple with the environmental issues we're talking about, and the longer term sustainability. I think these are all kind of in line with our values. And making sure that the bid seems like they were a really willing partner, and DOT, well, like what we're all saying the same thing, and it's all kind of in writing, so it's clear to everyone what everyone's responsibility and who's doing what when.
This
the bid-
issue is really an add-in for me, because I walked the whole corridor
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, so,
Nice.
and
Hopefully it was a nice
encountered
day
this.
for it.
It was supposed to be a nice day.
Yeah, so maybe we need to figure out this, like, because there's already decimal issues, that's like volume issues that already exist under the law. Sounds like we have a DEP enforcement problem, but maybe we need to think creatively of how we get that resolved here.
We have
So-
never had a solution for noise enforcement. Someone want to speak? Emily?
Yeah, sorry, can I just jump in? So
Sure.
there are a few different enforcers of the noise code. It's NYPD, but then also DEP, as folks have said. Something that's a recurring issue is that, like, if you call 311 and complain, by the time someone actually like takes action on the complaint, the noise is gone. So I just want to reiterate that if there is noise as a result of an event, that is something where the community board has a voice, particularly in SAPO's permitting system. So the community board gets notification of events. The community board can comment on events. SAPO consults the community board. And so, for example, if there is a set of recurring events where the noise is too loud, you feel like they're going over said volumes, what have you, you can coordinate with SAPO and enter those comments into the system, and SAPO will take that into account before they permit that entity again. So I just want to be also crystal clear that it's not the bid that has a say about the events in the space. The bid can certainly be a host of events, and they can apply for a SAPO permit on behalf of either themselves or a community organization, but it is the street activity permit office that is housed in the mayor's office that has a set of rules and runs the permitting system for any activity that happens in New York City streets. So the bid can, just like the community board, comment on the events, but they don't necessarily have control or a play in any and all events that happen in their space. This concession agreement.
We get the money from it and that's it.
This concession agreement allows them to collect funds only for commercial events that then offset like the maintenance that they spend kind of cleaning up after the event and or manage during it.
Unfortunately, what I'm talking about are just individuals who feel that they want to perform along Broadway, and they bring their loudspeaker and their microphone, they set it up and they start performing to anyone that will pass by.
Right.
So it's a different, and I don't know how we control that, but wherever we've had one or two, I'm sure more will come to do the same thing.
Yeah, it sounds like we need DEP and NYPD to do better enforcement, and maybe it's a letter from the board to overlapping electeds and DEP and NYPD about like figuring out better enforcement.
You're on.
So I just wanted to collect what I'm hearing and see what the implications are. So if we're gonna revisit this resolution, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we want to talk a lot more about environmental impact. I want to hammer down on the sort of capital improvement, greenery stuff that we're talking about. We had what?
The roadway stuff that I talked about.
I understand.
Talked a bit about.
So I think when we initially drafted this, I think we had intentionally left capital. Like, I don't think there's any capital we had discussed capital improvements. We intentionally left that out of the resolution. It's fine to put it in, although I guess number 7 is capital. But, well, the bathroom is saying access to that. We're not saying build the bathroom, right? So, but fair. So if we want to do that, we could do that. I would sort of separate out what's for the concession, like what's about the concession agreement, what's about like capital on the capital improvement. I think the issue that Nancy is talking about, to me, does not feel like a land use issue, but should go to parks, like as something for you guys to consider. See,
There's like a DEP relational
something.
thing.
Yeah.
Noise pollution.
But it's still part of this whole. Right now, no one has control over those spaces. It's going to grow. The uses and activations will increase in volume. And so when that happens, there are other things that will. occur
Totally.
as well.
I'm not minimizing
And
that. I'm just trying to organize.
It's tangential.
Yeah.
Management of
I mean, the
space.
bid
I-
could sorry, yeah, the bid could play a role in this.
Right,
Just-
right.
they can't write a ticket, but
Right.
they have people
Okay,
there
we
that can
could
say,
write
could you
in-
please
Sure,
turn down your.
we can write in like to consider as an ambassador program,
Yeah.
able to say, turn down your music, sure. And then I do think we need to address though. If we are reopening the discussion on the 30% and the 50%,
Yeah.
because I will say, I'm very comfortable with 50%. We talked about this last time. If there's appetite to reopen it, let's reopen it, but, are we doing that? That's a question for Nancy and the committee.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna go Myrtle, but David is gonna be writing the resolution. He has the most information. And what's wonderful about David is he's also chair of the Transportation Committee, who works with DOT on a regular basis. So David, do you want to comment on that at all?
We do a lot of resolutions that are essentially, we have collected comments from committee members and the public, and these are the comments I received. So it isn't necessarily like we are absolutely taking a position that the 50 should be 30 or something else. It's just that we, received this comment and, as part of this process, it should be looked at.
Well-
I think, what James mentioned came up in the last review, which is there are only certain nodes where you can get a more intensive level. And when you start getting outside of the bow tie, the percentage drops way off. So, will it average anywhere near 50? Probably not. But I mean, we can certainly put it in our resolution that we would prefer that when you take that into account, that we come in below the, the 50% threshold. But
Myrtle,
So my concern is that I think that the seeding is gonna happen from private enterprise, not so much from the bid. If you lower the cap and say, for example, the kiosk society, they need 5 seats.
you have to go to the bid to get access to the seating in the first place.
Right,
There's no case where a restaurant can just throw tables up on the sidewalk. They have to go to the bid and.
and the bid
DOT
would
to
put
do
out the
that.
seating for the kiosk.
I don't know, that's how, but they, under the concession, then the bid and DOT decide whether, they don't apply for a dining permit. They go through the concession program, but, the grantors of the concession have to approve it, so you can't just do it yourself. I think the restaurant goes through the process with them, puts it out themselves, pays for the maintenance of it. I mean, that's not the bid's responsibilities.
But do you think that lowering the cap, because say, for example, the businesses decide, the bid decides alongside the kiosk operators that they need, say, for example, 10 chairs, right? And then the cap is 30%, 50% instead of 30%. If it was
Right.
30%, then they have to provide an additional 20.
Yeah, I guess,
Have more empty
I guess my answer on this would be that in the bow tie area, maybe it's a higher percentage, and outside the bow tie area, it's a lower percentage, if we want to get into that discussion, and, if it was 50 in the bow tie and whatever this is, 30 or 35% outside of that, it probably works for what they want to do, and it does, push down the overall percentage, but.
And then second point is that of signage to let people know that this is publicly available.
Yeah, we'll pick that up.
Ankur.
We have that issue all the time.
Agree with the point you're on, raised that we had an extensive discussion about this cap and we came on 50. I think 50 is reasonable. If we want to put in language saying accounting for the fact that some parts of this area may have more versus less, that's fine. If it works out to 50, I think that's a reasonable number. And I do agree with the point that you're on made just now, that if you have a lower cap, it's not like we're going to get I don't think we will get a better alternative. I think we will just get more asphalt. And so I want to keep the 50% cap if we could. And then also, as we add new items, I just want to say I liked the format of the existing resolution, and I would like us, and I'd urge us to keep it, which is we listed priorities, but then our resolve said that we recommended approvals, emphasizing meaningful incorporation of the priorities. And the reason I want to keep that framework, and it sounds like folks are nodding, is I don't want to necessarily, we are not in the best position to micromanage this. and figure out, has every single one of these items been adhered to? But we should ask for meaningful incorporation, and I think that satisfies our responsibility, and it's also the right role for us, is to not be overly prescriptive, and we're not an adjudicator or a regulator, or a community. And I think the right thing to do is to say, these are things that are important to the community, you should meaningfully incorporate them, and then leave it at that. And I'm a little nervous if we start to veer into a territory where we act like a regulator. We are not a regulating body, we shouldn't have them.
Any other comments on the committee?
Say one thing. I think you're a body that needs information and input, and I think those are really important things. If someone spent a lot of time on a community board and chaired a community board, I think, you know, the transparency is a critical part. I hear what you're saying, like, you don't need everything on your list, this is your list. But like commitments that are being made, they should be made in clear, and then making sure there's actual follow-up on those commitments, I think is really important piece of it.
It's fine to have. And we have, I think, great relationships with DOT. I'm also on the transportation committee. They come to us a lot. I appreciate getting the feedback. I think this is gonna be a great change, and I don't want to saddle it with a lot of requirements that I think will make it difficult to see this change happen. So I respectfully, I think I like the framework that we had.
Any other comments from the committee members? How are we going toward getting a resolution we can vote on? Where are we? David, you want to kind of?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of structure, I think the language that we got from council member's office was kind of like items 9, 10, and 11. So I think we would do that. I don't think we're talking about changing the structure. As I said, I'll pick up the comments, that weren't in the specific language that we got. Look, on this last cap issue, I mean, we have people online here that can comment on it, but I didn't really see it as restricting anything by saying it's 50% in the denser areas and, or urging that it be something less in the less dense areas outside of the bow tie. And let's, I think
that's
to the council members' point, we'll see this as it develops and.
Yes, I don't think we need to have any more discussion on that.
Yeah, I think as a policy goal, it's okay to say.
Yes.
Our preference is that the density belong where it belongs.
Right.
Yes.
And not exist where it doesn't belong.
Is everyone shaking their
And
heads?
say, okay, let's see how that.
Is everyone shaking their heads? Okay, so are we ready to take a vote? Or do we have a nomination?
Could you describe the 3 additional items that you're gonna add?
And then we'll do a motion. Someone will do a motion.
Yeah, so this is picking up on language that we got from the council. So there's a section 9 dealing with green infrastructure and utilities. The bottle refill stations, then sustainability, prohibit concessionaires from offering single-use plastic items, install recycling and composting receptacles, educate the public on how to correctly dispose of waste. Number 9 was opportunities for nonprofit organizations that we talked about. There's some bullet points on that. And then we'll pick up this comment on higher density in the bow tie and lower density outside the bow tie. And
Noise.
what else? Oh, noise.
Signage.
Signage.
Marketing sustainability metrics. We're not being prescriptive, we just want some information.
Got all that, David?
Can I just ask a clarifying
Yeah,
question on
you know.
the nonprofit usage? So I think I understand what you're saying. We're talking about some number, maybe 25% of, not of the space, but of like permitted, like event activity. Yeah, okay, got it.
I mean, we should only have that problem, right?
Yeah,
That number of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
people show up and we're
Right,
all out
right.
there, like,
Sorry, the 25.
I look forward to that day.
Saying it's a cap or a minimum floor required, or it's just some.
It's a set aside in like with it, like you have a
Right,
permitted.
you would allow up to 25%, I guess, because otherwise you're eating into the concession area, so.
So you would allow, but you're not required to set aside 25. Is it a set aside or an allowance?
I think it's an allowance, because you need people to apply to use it. if you get 4 tables and you put it in an acre of land, that's not accomplishing anything. So, yeah, I think the idea is.
You would allow up to
Allow up to
25.
25%.
Allow up. Okay, that's fine.
Ready for a motion?
The ESG metrics for the
Would like to.
applications.
Who would like to make a motion?
I'm sorry, up to 27%, but no more?
Yeah, no more. Cause then you're eating into the agreement, on the concession agreement itself, so.
Michael,
I would like to make a motion to approve what the resolution David just outlined.
Second.
Second,
okay, so let's go to the vote.
Seth,
Yes.
I'm a yes, Ankur,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Libby,
yes.
Kim,
Yes.
you're on,
Yep.
David,
Yes.
Myrna.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for
Come.
being considerate, being a new council member and letting me figure this out together with you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Flatiron Nomad bid.
Good.
Okay. Now let's go back to where we. 1345 Avenue of the Americas Open Air Cafe renewal. It's a permit application for a 3-year renewal to continue operation of 3 open air cafes previously approved in 2023. The application is not subject to ULURP and does not require a public hearing by this community board. But it is an opportunity for Community Board 5 to submit comments to the Department of City Planning. And so our lead committee member on this is Julie Chu. Julie.
I'm gonna have them present first. I went to the site, was really cold, there was nobody there, there was no outside seating. Because, nobody wanted to sit outside, so. Let's see what they said.
Hello,
Hello.
I have a presentation deck. Should I share my screen?
Yeah.
Just to quickly brief everybody. All right, 1 second. Let me know when it comes up on the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Great. So, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Lee, Land Use Counsel for the owner of 1345 Avenue of the Americas building. I am joined by my colleague, John Overstreet. Thank you for having us today. We are here to present an application for renewal of 3 open-air cafes within the North Plaza stretching along West 55th Street. So first, before we talk about the plaza, I just want to orient everybody. So this is the 1345 Avenue of the Americas buildings. It is a 49-story commercial office tower, which was constructed in 1968, pursuant to a special permit to modify then applicable height and setback regulations. So here's a site plan showing the aerial view. Now, the 1345 Avenue of the Americas building is wrapped around entirely by a public plaza. As you can see, it is shaped as a donut with the building, 1345 building right in the middle. The plaza has full block frontage on the west side of 6th Avenue, Avenue of the Americas, and extends west down West 45th Street, 54th Street and 55th Street, then wrapping around, providing a through connection between 54th and 55th Streets. So the zoning lot also includes the Ziegfeld Theater that's to the west of the plaza. And it's a 3-story event space which borders the plaza to the west and is part of the zoning lot, and the site also provides below grade parking with a capacity of up to 323 spaces. So in 2021, the owner commenced a $120 million large-scale improvement project to renovate the building and significantly upgrade the plaza. The improvements to the plaza included providing additional benches and seating arranged to encourage social gathering and people watching, installing raised planters, movable tables and chairs throughout the plaza, also installing new pavers, steps, and increasing ADA accessibility throughout, and providing better lighting. I know that contradicts the statement that it's so cold that nobody was sitting outside, but it is widely used in the summers. So this is just a view when it was first constructed from the south corner. And the three cafes are actually situated on the North Plaza portion here along West 55th Street. And this is Cafe 123 here. And the Cafe 123s are operated. Here's a little zoomed, enlarged plan of the cafe areas within the Northern Plaza portion. So the two of the cafes are operated by Quality Bistro, and the third cafe is operated by Wagamama. And that was the unseason plan, and this is the off-season cafe plan. As right now, it is mostly an off-season. What we've been having a longer cold season, so there weren't any chairs outside, and also the windy situation oftentimes blows the tables and some things. So there are some pictures that we took back in January. Unfortunately, since we had filed the application in January, we had to take pictures at a more recent date. So these are the current pictures. This is a view of Cafe Area 1 from the west. This is the opposite side viewing towards the theater, towards the west. And then this is Cafe Area portion 2. And then lastly, this is the opposite view of Cafe portion 2. And then this is for the view of Wagamama. Now, just to note, we are not changing anything in the cafe proposal that was approved in 2023. It is still providing all the same movable tables and chairs, which are amenities, and oftentimes there would be movable umbrellas and litter receptacles in the cafes. And this is just a compliance chart that shows compliance with the cafe area within the plaza, and that it's open to the sky, and that there are other compliance requirements that we are meeting. That ends our presentation, and we will take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Thank you. Questions from the committee? No questions. So what, Julie?
I was gonna talk about bathrooms on my foot.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask if you.
Yeah, so I walked the site and, the commercial lobby is just giant empty space that, you don't know where the bathroom is. So Joe's Coffee there. It's a very small cafe that doesn't have access to bathrooms. I'm sure there's there's bathrooms in the restaurants, but I have mixed feelings about mandating restaurants to open up their bathrooms to public. I think it should be, they should decide and we incentivize them, but to me, it obstructs their service when people are walking back and forth, especially since bathrooms are usually in the back of the restaurants. But one thing to think about is if you look at the plaza, it really widens the sidewalk. And our city has these automated public toilets where they can't find sites for them because the sidewalk are too narrow. But if we could have an easement in these pops, we could use the clearances. You need like 5 feet on both sides of the APTs. So these widened sidewalks really help with the sighting. So I know we're trying to ask DCP to incentivize owners to provide bathrooms. Because these buildings, it's hard for them to create a bathroom in already built infrastructure. One option to consider is that they create an easement in their property so that it allows DOT to provide a sidewalk bathroom. Whether adjacent to their site or even on their site, it's that 5 feet clearance that we really need.
So is that a question for this applicant?
If they're open to that. But I don't know if you guys are aware of these automated public toilets that the city has installed. Like there's like 5 in the city. We can't get them installed in Midtown because our sidewalks are not wide enough. So one thing that CB5 has thought about in the past is utilizing some of those pop open spaces for automated public toilets. This is something we want to talk to DCP about, of course. It's not something we would want to spot individual pops, but one question to you and your developers is, you guys would be open to utilizing some of your public space for this?
I'm happy to bring that back to unfortunately, the client wasn't able to attend this hearing today, but I'm happy to bring that back about these public bathroom pods and CB5's thoughts about engaging in discussions with DCP about potential sightings. And one of those potential sightings could be within pop spaces or straddling of pop spaces in order to provide the 5-foot clearance. I totally understand your point there.
Yeah, it's just in exchange for the public space that the restaurants are using, would developers be willing to provide some space for access to public bathrooms or help the city site these toilets?
We'll bring it back for discussion, and that this was raised at the community board as a question, to see how the likelihood of having this effectuated. There would be other questions that may need to be hashed out with DCP in this process of conversation, such as, because this is private land, some of the liability and indemnification issues that may come up with that. But like those were all, but we always deal with those. So I'm sure those will be a part of the conversations with DCP about how to manage that when it comes to straddling of private land. Yeah.
Yeah, any feedback would be much appreciated. I think some of that could potentially be worked out with an easement agreement, but we would love to hear feedback so that we can go back to DCP about this.
David.
I guess I just need a refresher on how the cafe seating rules work. So when it's not the operating hours of the restaurant, do they remove the tables and chairs and there's nothing there? Okay. And then there's off season, the same thing, but there's no seating. It's not like it reverts to public seating at those hours, right?
My understanding is every night they
clear it.
clear it, but maybe
Correct.
with, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
And
they're
then
not
the only
chained
other-
or anything, right?
And the only other thing I wanted to say on the bathroom is I think those things still require utilities. They require water and sewer, so.
Yeah, but the thing is to consider is that the sewer line, it's easier to access the sewer line when there is a building there versus they do it at parks, and like
There's nothing.
pulling utility lines at parks is like so expensive.
Right.
So
It's 5-foot clearance around, how big's the actual bathroom?
I would say 12 feet by 8 feet. And then in front of it, you need 8 feet, not, so 5 feet on 3 sides, 8
sides
feet
and-
at the front. It's so
And
crazy.
itself, it's 12 by 8.
Yeah, it's like, it's
Interesting.
giant.
So other questions from the committee? Michael?
Did the applicant talk about signage on the tables or sandwich boards or anything like that?
I guess, so every time you guys apply, we ask about the signage on these tables. That the restaurant place signage on the tables to say that the seating is open to the public. Is that something you guys have over the years accepted?
I don't believe so. Not the cafe seatings. Because they're provided outside during operating business hours. The restaurant business hours. So
Yeah, okay, thank you for reminding me. So are you willing to ask the owner again in this round to see if they're willing to provide that signage?
I can take it back and ask and see if the tenant is willing to, but if it's during the business, when it's on season for the cafe seating, I'm not sure the tenant would be open to that.
Got it. Yeah, I want to walk this The restaurants look pretty nice when I was
Yeah.
walking that area.
And I've eaten outside at Quality Bistro before, so it's like full service,
Yeah.
wait staff. So I'm sure that would be a hard concession.
And
I just wanted to introduce, the letter that was shared here about the noise complaints.
Okay.
About these specific locations
okay,
and wearing my old slap hat.
Okay.
There's there's no allowance for outdoor music.
right.
So if these tenants have somehow installed speakers and are pumping music out onto the street, that's just a violation of the noise rules. And it just shouldn't happen. And under the lease, it should be clear that they're not allowed to do that.
So we would put that in our comments.
Yeah.
So do you have anything you'd like to tell us about these illegal sound systems that have been installed in these cafes?
So the owner did speak to the tenants, the restaurant tenants, and have informed them about the noise and what we have heard from them as of late. There's no active noise violations as they have all been cleared, but yes, those conversations have been, they have had the conversation about the noise, yes.
But there's no stipulation in the lease that says that it's illegal to have these speaker systems outside in the plaza. It should be
That,
it should be in your lease.
understand,
Right.
I will speak directly about that, yes.
Yeah, we need to
I'll
have this in the lease. Other questions of this applicant, anybody? No? Anyone from the public online? Okay, thank you very much. Now we're in comments. Do we? Go ahead.
Hey,
Oh,
so-
Ankur.
Just to make sure I understand, this, I think, Nancy, based on your email, this applicant is not going through a ULURP, so we don't have to vote one way or the other on the application, but instead we could make comments to the city, and I heard Julie's point to consider whether this might be an appropriate spot for a public bathroom, and to have the city and the applicant consider that. But what would a potential resolution like this look like? Do
I
we
think,
comment on?
yeah, I think it should still be a resolution that we are comments and we would put in that it's not required, but we have been given the opportunity. And I think the noise violation is serious.
Yep.
So I think that's the first thing. We talk about how it should be in the lease. Between the owner of the building and the restaurateur. That's a violation and it's illegal. So that would be one big thing for me. And I guess the other thing, Julie, I don't know what else you would want to add onto the reso, but I think we should pass a resolution because I just feel like it's stronger. It can go as a letter. But the DCP has asked for our comments and I think we should take up the opportunity.
And just to let you know that our past resolution was a denial.
That's what.
Denial of the application
There's no
to
application.
expand out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know why we denied
In
it.
2023, we had it, remember in 2023, it said
It weren't-
approved.
But that was an
That
actual
recommends
application.
denial, ban outdoor seating of the 1345 Avenue, the America's Pops.
Well, then my
I
information
think
is
they're
wrong.
all non-ULURP.
Oh.
The ULURP took place in,
Yeah.
1968
Right,
or whatever,
Yeah.
so now these are all non-ULURP.
I think maybe you're looking at the redesign.
Recertification and expansion of outdoor cafe seating.
Oh, expansion though, so that's interesting.
Yeah, this is not, this is the same.
2022.
I just wanted to sorry, may I clarify that? There wasn't an expansion of the cafe seating but so that, yeah, at that time, I believe there were some updates to the plaza that was done. And maybe that there was a miscommunication then in 2023, but the cafe areas were the same. There was no expansion happening.
No.
I think it was a redesign.
But there's like 7
I'm looking at
clauses
the-
about the noise complaints and how we're frustrated by the non-compliance issues.
So the noise was an issue back then.
Was it amplified sound or was it just noise of customers? Because that's two different things.
Yeah.
Amplified sound is,
Amplified music of the summer and fall of twenty twenty-two from residents of West 55th Street.
so if this was an issue.
And we have a letter.
3 years ago, and this continues to be an issue, clearly this is an issue that the property owner, the landlord is not.
And it's not in the lease.
Well, whether it's
Well,
not, the landlord's not taking it serious,
Then you can
Still
tell them the
illegal,
lease
yeah.
is not gonna do anything.
right? If illegal, it's legal, but the landlord seems to not, and that's the problem.
So then we have to make this a very strong.
You mentioned.
And talk about the history of.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
brought to our attention in
Fine.
2022. We raised the issue as a complaint. It's 2026 now. 4 years later, has not been cured.
Yep. Agreed.
So I don't know, I don't think we can, we can't deny
Well,
the
it's no,
permit.
no, but it's noise, it's the suggestion of the bathroom.
We can
Those are the
deny it.
things.
It's not a well, it is an application. Sure, we can deny it.
Yeah.
So
No,
let's do a denial.
Nothing to deny.
Denial unless we have some assurance that this noise situation that's been going on for 4 years is resolved.
It's a non-ULURP application that requires community board input.
Correct.
Right, you
So
can
that-
deny it, yeah, if
Yeah.
you want to,
It's a
yeah,
resolution.
the DCP, you can tell the
They
DCP.
had,
deny
Yeah.
it.
they had 4 years to, clean this up.
Something rigorous, otherwise they would not be here, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I guess I'm confused.
I thought Nancy said that it was.
Not the
Yeah.
bathroom, but the signage.
It's non-ULURP.
I know that it's not, you but that you did act as.
Guys.
The DCP's asked for.
Sorry. Or just, maybe it's a question for.
Yeah.
if
We,
they could
we get
just-
recertification
Yeah.
applications all the time for land use.
Yes,
And we always provide a letter
yes,
and usually we do denials.
yeah, okay.
A resolution.
But I think this time we have a really strong reason for a denial. We gave them the situation. They have not cured it in 4 years.
I think that's fair.
That's a long time to tell a restaurant owner, you can't have loudspeakers because you're keeping the neighbors up at night.
Heck down.
Or just tell the landlord to care about that.
Yes,
Right.
Kevin.
Would there be a track record of complaints via 311 or
Well,
of the music?
it mentions 311 in the old reso.
I'm sorry.
It mentions 311 complaints in the old reso.
Oh, okay.
It was recorded by 311.
Does she have any copy or the,
Do you have any copy of the 311 complaints on the noise complaints for these cafes on 55th Street? Miss Lee?
No, I don't.
Okay.
would that be the enforcement mechanism? Otherwise, in 3 years, are we just gonna go through this all again?
Yeah, that's the problem. There's no enforcement. That is a problem, but we should still go on the record.
Yeah.
And we should go on the record that we complained that we concerned about this 4 years ago. Do you have anything to say about 311? We don't have any records, 311.
I think they're all on the.
And they both have liquor licenses.
So what we
people can raise
could
it
do
that way as
is,
well.
Isabel could attach to this the records of the 311 calls on the noise complaints.
There are.
If there are, yeah, there are any.
And we can look up when their liquor licenses are coming up. for renewal.
Yes,
Julie, you're gonna be out there.
that's right. Oh, no. Yeah, something to say.
I wrote this resolution.
Oh, you wrote it. So help us here.
No, that wasn't any voluntary, no.
Extend the discussion. What are your thoughts?
No, I'm. Where it was, we wrote denial, we expressed these concerns and it hasn't changed, so, yeah,
Hasn't changed in 4 years.
I'm in.
That's a long time.
3 years, 3 years,
Yeah.
but yes.
3 years, okay.
Okay, has what, one more.
Yeah, I guess so just to make sure I understand the process here, they are not required to come in front of the community group. They are applying to renew their license. The reason I say they're not required to come here is I thought your email, or Nancy said that,
Well, that's what I was told.
A public hearing is not required.
Yes.
okay. So I guess when a public hearing is not required, I'd like to encourage people to come and do a public hearing. This is a nice thing that they're coming to say that they're They didn't have, my understanding is they did not have to come here.
They usually come.
Yeah.
No,
did
they
not-
usually, they may
yes.
usually come, but they did not have to come here.
Correct, because
They
there
are
were no
coming.
changes.
Most of the time that pops are coming here, like you're saying, are for.
But so what's your point?
My point is just,
Let's.
we should encourage folks to come even to tell us about things so we have an opportunity to share feedback. This is gonna be a useful thing. But I'm trying to think what's the best way to encourage people to do this if it's voluntary. And it might say we'd approve this if you fix these problems. But, so
That's
that's
right.
how I would probably phrase this.
Is it better to do a deny unless instead of a flat out deny?
So for me, again, because this is voluntary and I want to encourage this so that we have an opportunity to give applicants feedback that they may not get otherwise. It may encourage people to come to us if we say things like, look, we want to work with you. We want you to have this. You don't have to be here to ask for it. But we'd like you to do these things.
But they came to us voluntarily, however, they have done nothing about the noise problems. I mean, I understand what you're saying,
That's just,
but this is a bad actor. This is clearly a bad actor who is refused to reduce the noise or eliminate the noise. You're on.
I propose a resolution that would be a deny unless. Fix the thing that we asked you to fix 3 years ago that you didn't fix, plus a suggestion on the back.
Okay,
Is that a motion?
is that a motion?
Suggestion?
Okay, fine, that's a motion.
Can we stop keeping the signage part?
In the signage part, guys.
Because it's.
Because that will be the trade for the.
Yeah.
Citing, like, whatever.
And then Yaron, can we add to your motion the signage for number 3? Signage on the table?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Wait, sorry. Are you adding that as one? But I'm saying the bathroom is not part of the deny. The bathroom's a suggestion, because there's a lot of complications with the
Yes.
bathroom. Are we saying the table is part of the, like, is the deny unless 2 things? It's get rid of the speakers and put signs on the table, plus maybe add a bathroom? Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, so let's go to a vote.
yes.
I'm a yes, Anker.
No.
Terry,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Michael.
Yeah,
Tristan.
Yes.
Livy.
Yep.
Kim,
Yes.
Yaron.
Yep.
David,
Yes.
Myrtle,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Our last, item of business is our, fellow of, for the city of, fellow from the Fund for the City of New York, who, is gonna give us a presentation, Ruben. And Ruben is going to introduce himself, tell us where he's going to school, what program he's studying, and what degree he's going after, and a little bit about for the Fund for the City of New York, and why it's important that we listen to what you have to say.
Okay, how to sell myself.
Yeah, can we take a few minutes?
Yeah. You want to turn that around?
You need to sit. You need to sit.
It's
okay, I can read this one.
This will be the same. This is good. Can you see?
Yeah, yep.
We gotta get it set up. By the way, the brief for this presentation is on the table here. One of you wants to get, this is Druven. Ben is gonna be on Monday at Parks.
Ben already happened.
Bathroom machine working?
He did come on Monday.
There's one is with Druven.
Only one I've seen.
There, I've only made 5 copies, so
This is the other half of it, I think. It's
one is with Ben and one's for Druven.
But that's the name on
Bathroom
it.
machine?
It's either bad.
Druven is the name on the top.
Yeah.
There were 2, but they're overlapping because everything's about public space.
It's like 2
Okay.
pages, yeah.
So,
Everything's parks.
are we ready?
Manifest destiny.
I'm ready.
So this is about our MSMX zoning.
So I'm gonna talk about open space strategies for MXMX
Wait,
zone.
who are you and where are you from?
It's like-
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, So I'm Dhruvan. I go to Pratt Institute. I'm a graduate student pursuing environmental planning there. It's my last semester. And this project is a part of community planning fellowship for fund for the city of New York, a nonprofit. They place graduate student with community board to help them aid like analytical framework and have more planning capacity. It's a 1-year program. First 6 months is like workshopping, and we meet like city planning commissions. We meet all city planners and people from community board. We decide a project. Community boards pitch what they need to be rezoning on, and we pick that project. So I picked MXMX rezoning and open space problem that they have, as number of people will be increased in this neighborhood with the same amount of open space that they rely on. Okay, so looking at the context, Midtown is one of the most spatially constrained and high pressure neighborhood of New York City. Only about 2.36 of land in CB5 is dedicated to parks, far below city standards, which demands of with extremely high workers population and residents and tourists. As a result, public space is limited, overused, and highly contested. Further compounds low tree canopy, high impervious surface, and poor air qualities all over impact environmental and public health. Looking at the demographic breakdown, Midtown is overwhelming with worker age population, which is nearly 78% of residents between 18 to 64. At the same time, there are including 8.5 people under 18 and 13.6 about 65 age. With that, critical thing is that 62% of residents are only within a walking distance of parks or an open space. And when we look at the MXMX rezoning, is planning to have more than 16,000 residents in this neighborhood with slight decline of working population, but they have no open space plan, or they are not creating any new open spaces for this new resident coming in. With that, I come to my research question of how this will be impacted to the zone and Midtown, and what things can, like GI infrastructure, can help mitigate some of those public space demand. And with that, the goal of this project is to have some scalable and implementable green infrastructure intervention, which can align with CB5 priorities. So looking at the severity of open space, I started to look at the Seeker standard, which is environmental review process for the city. And they use the standard of 2.5 acres for 1,000 residents. Looking at current ratio, it's 0.42 acres per 1,000 residents. And if we go and look at the with action, no action, which means if this rezoning hadn't gone through, looking at the population growth and infrastructure growth, it could be around 0.38 acres per 1,000 residents. But with this rezoning, we come with the ratio of 0.35, which is way below the city standards for to start with. And Midtown has currently like only 1/5 of the recommendation of open space provision. This is not just a planning issue, but also it relates to public health and environmental issues. Looking at the study area, I realized that we don't have land or space to build large new parks or open spaces. And to respond to this constraint, I examined few global case studies with dense cities, which have sustainably and successfully integrated green infrastructure with less or limited spaces. Looking at Portland and Philadelphia, demonstrate how biosphere and permeable streets can be functional as a disintegrated infrastructure project all along the streets and bike lanes. Looking at Madeline and Singapore shows how tree corridors can transform entire streets into cooling and ecological networks. And Barcelona and Paris illustrate how reclaiming street spaces can create new public realm without acquiring any land. Open space doesn't have to be large or centralized or park-based. It has to be distributed and layered and embedded within an urban system or a city. And looking at the MXMX points of agreement, board has already recognized many of these challenges, emphasizing on new public spaces, public investment in infrastructures, and overall quality of life for communities here. But this also raised me a question of how they will find new open spaces to do that. So this project comes as a spatial manifestation for points of agreement of how can open space or green infrastructure can be done in Midtown and MX7 zones. So looking at my first strategies, it introduced linear green infrastructure along the street. It is efficiently creating like curbside linear park without extending into, like it can be extended into bus lanes or bike lanes and curb extension. It also doesn't add just vegetation. It also acts as a protective buffer between pedestrian and vehicular traffic, improving safety and reduction of exposure to pollution, enhancing overall walkability. This has also done in several other case studies and have been precedent for New York State as well. A small pilot can be done along the 6th Avenue, where the board is already advocating for expanding sidewalks along the 6th, 7th, and 8th Avenue as a part of points of agreement. And this can demonstrate how it could be done. By integrating those planned expansions, we are not just widening sidewalk, but transforming it into more functional public space. Next. And a single pilot can be generated approximately 2,500 square footage of open space, which is around 0.05 acres of new green space in a single curbside extension. And when we scale across multiple corridors, the strategy can produce over 1 acres of distributed public open space, which can improve roughly 20% of the open space ratio in Midtown. And this can be aligned directly with DOT's street design, redesign priorities. They have ribbon sidewalks and sidewalks expansion in place and happening in multiple sites. So this could be linked to that. My second strategy focusing on privately owned public spaces. Currently, many POPs are underutilized due to poor design and lack of accessibility, which we are talking about right now. However, MXMX, FAR bonus and rezoning incentives can be used to create new higher quality, higher quantity and quality of POP spaces. Through GIS, I identified potential redevelopment sites within MXMX zone, which has lot area more than 13,000 square feet, making them strong candidates for redevelopment under this rezoning. Each of the site, if imagining roughly can have 3,000 square footage of publicly accessible private spaces. This would result in overall 3.4 acres of new space in the MXMX zones. And this translates roughly to 24.2% improvement in the ratio that we were talking about earlier. This few strategies are secondary and I'm still building them stronger in my report, but they help in transforming the existing medians into green infrastructure system, and they provide public safety, stormwater management, and micro-scale open spaces. They also align with Vision Zero and DOT's project and can be implemented as ongoing infrastructure upgrades, reducing the additional cost. This strategy reimagines streets as multifunctional public spaces. We have heard of open spaces. It can be expanded into high density neighborhood, especially in MXMX zones, like M19A with 15 and 18% of FAR area. It also aligns with the points of agreement where board is asking for feasibility study of a Broadway linear part, and this could be an extension for it. Finally, I look at global cities like Tokyo, Toronto, San Francisco, and they show how can policy mandate green roof and linking development to public benefit. This law's requirement and incentives or zoning bonus that ensures new development contributing to green roof and having public access with environmental performance in the urban dense area. And in context to MXMX, it can be integrated into zoning-based incentives like POPs and focus creating on public access on these open spaces, which are in high-density developments. And currently I'm developing further steps. I have like 1 month to put all this in report, but I'm linking and making sure how this recommendation can go and have an implementation pathway. Like linear path can be pilot project for DOT and DEP green infrastructure programs. Expansion of privately owned can be a negotiation or a point of agreement with DCP. And into a business improvement district, they could coordinate to have those. And the open spaces, yeah, for DOT Open Street program, it could be linked to them. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. Very insightful. So, do we have any questions from the committee for Drewman?
I have a question. Yes. So you mentioned at the very end, you mentioned roofs. I was curious about whether there are precedents or other forms of green space that were not at street level. So for instance, we saw, what's the building next to residential that we saw?
One banner, but one.
Right, and they have plans for
Mhm.
sort of like a second level
Right.
thing, thing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Are there precedents, and it sounds like you did extensive
Mhm.
research in cities around the world where that would be an opportunity as
Yeah,
well?
so Singapore is doing a lot of green walls. But I compared it with New York, where city and especially Midtown has more of a glass facade. But Singapore is mandating that they have green wall for at least 3 floors. But looking at redevelopment here and increasing like just spaces above, it would be difficult to get green. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Judy.
Chairman, I saw this and I'm so sorry I didn't have a chance to respond to your presentation, but I also had a question about that. So in New York City, Google, the Pier 17, is it Pier 17 that, so you can go up to the roof there and utilize that.
Right, public, right, yeah. Yeah, so there's roofs, certainly there's maybe second floor, like there's maybe other even non-street level opportunities, yeah, okay.
That's a successful one, but in Asia, I went to Tokyo and there's so many really famous ones.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a commercial or mixed use building.
Of course, right, of course.
Other questions from the committee?
So thank you for the presentation. It was fantastic. I especially liked seeing all the creative ways we could add more greenery in our streets and kind of fit things into a very dense part of town. My question is more about, you had started the presentation with a number of like statistics about how much of the space in RCB is dedicated to parkland, and then you also had best practices and ratios that the city has. Do you know how when we think about those statistics, how to incorporate Central Park? The reason I ask is it's not part of any community board, even though it borders ours. And if we exclude that parkland from any of these statistics, it makes things look like there's less space than the bordering communities actually have to some degree available to them.
Right. So there can be a way to do that, but Seeker identifies a 15-minute walking radius from an urban or an open space. And we can do that, but I didn't do that because I was just looking at MXMX zone.
It's too far from MXMX.
Too far for MXMX.
Got it.
I just included the zones which are going to be
Okay.
zones.
So so those statistics around just MX.
Right. Yeah.
That part was too far, but when you look at our CB generally, you could
Yes.
include.
Right. Yeah.
Just to follow up, so that your 62% statistic includes Central Park, so at the northern end.
No, it doesn't
BB5,
include,
okay.
it just include Bryan Block.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? So I just wanted to talk about the COPS proposal where we were looking at a precedent COPS in the Midtown where it's a 13,000 square feet lot and it has a very successful indoor POPs. So we took that 13,000 square feet lot and identified sites in MSMX that's 13,000 or above. And then we went found 50 sites So these are sites that are large enough to support a really quality indoor pops.
So I guess then the question is, do we need to submit that to DCP?
It's a good number to have.
But I've been thinking that.
Go ahead.
I just, I think a good question for you, if we, having done all of this work, if you were us, what would you prioritize? What would be the first thing that you would want us to do with this incident?
Definitely the POPs piece, the recommendation of POPs, and like going to DCPs and just saying this are sites more than 30,000 square feet. Right now, covered pedestrians are like POPs have an incentives of 20% of FAR.
Yeah.
If those could be mandated of, because developer right now has a cap of 18 FAR.
Yeah.
They can easily get that, but what if this is like mandatorized?
Got
Like,
it.
even if they have 18 FAR, they'll need to do this.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you would go to DCP with like a recommendation or
Right.
correction, something like that. Okay, that's.
Well, DCP is on the line. Dylan, do you have any comments? You on the spot? You still there?
That's connect-
He was, definitely not now.
Connection.
Versus sitting back into the hedge.
Well, I think this is great. I think this is something we can really use to show to DCP.
What was an eligible parcel? What was the test for that?
Do you remember?
The lot size, you mean like why some are excluded?
Well, I mean, it says 50 eligible parcels.
Because
How big,
It's just
how big
taking-
are they that they can provide 3,000 square foot pops?
Because a precedent pop that was successful was built on a 13,000 square feet
So is that
lot.
the test if it's
That-
bigger than 13,000 feet?
Yeah, that's what we're. Just because it's a proven.
Right.
So would we ever want to consider, we don't have to do it tonight, but would we ever want to, his presentation report is not done. Do we want to be thinking about a resolution or something to send to DCP based on this information that he has now, so we can go on the record? That's a question to all of you. Libby?
Yes.
I agree.
I mean, I think the number is to show that it's a 25% improvement for Midtown. It's like, that's a lot. Imagine all this ground floor space for our district.
And indoor pops are very, very good in the winter when it's so cold, but also in the summer because they're air conditioned, so they were also cooling. They're cooling centers as well, which would be helpful.
Well, but, so to that question though, is there like a, like value difference between just public space and public space with greenery?
Right.
In other words, those would not be green. And,
Not necessarily.
There are pop requirements.
I'm asking the presenter, not you.
There's some requirements for like, there are two types, like covered and plaza.
Right.
Plaza is required to have like more greenery.
Right.
And looking at the indoor and covered, they're more incentivized or more, they're required to have seating and some plantation there. But more focus for plantation is for plazas and not for covered. But if I'm wrong, I don't know.
And what's interesting is there are a number of indoor pops that actually have bathrooms.
Right.
Public accessible
Totally.
bathrooms, because they have food
I'm
kiosks.
saying it's a balance of where you're gonna have trees, where you're gonna have bathrooms, where you're gonna have air conditioning, where you're gonna be outside, like, you know, we sort of want all of those things.
Was your question answered, Yaron?
Yes, it was, thank you. Nancy.
Libby?
Two things, just on this conversation and something else. On this conversation, there's a POPs that's not in this district. It's outside of our district that has like a beautiful planting inside. It's almost like botanical garden-ish, if that was an office building, that I think has been very successful with a lot of seating.
Like the Ford building.
Okay, so, yeah, it's beautiful, but that there is a way to have greenery and sort of glass that allows that to happen. But I was wondering if there's maybe a potential with some of the environmental piece and like the greening piece, some sort of like toolkit of when something comes before us, if there are things that would be good for us to ask for or prioritize asking for, if there is some sort of question, or like if the ground can't support certain of the green things that you recommend, just because there's stuff in our particular district, maybe there's a a legislative thing where we can ask that it be provided elsewhere nearby or something, so that they don't. So we're still doing it something
Yeah.
equitably, but I'm just wondering, as far as the toolkit of
Right,
this series of environmental requests on stormwater management.
Yeah.
Or heat.
but looking at stormwater management, because of the utilities and site, there have been designs or precedents which have raised bed
Mhm.
and then like a planting bed with raised elevated pathways too, but it doesn't help in mitigating a lot of stormwater.
Okay.
But there have been capture tanks which are used in urban cities. On plot areas where redevelopment happened, they have capture tanks, stormwater capture tanks, which can be directly connected to the linear parks, and it goes directly into that tank. So it could be used for irrigation purposes later on, or like green roofs.
Okay.
And it can,
By the way, our Department of City Planning is, I'm sorry, the Department of Environmental Protection is beginning to build capture tanks throughout the city. Renaud,
My question is about bioswales. My understanding is that they are prohibitively expensive, especially in New York City, to put in. I mean, I heard some really ridiculous numbers per bioswale. Are you aware of that? Have you heard that? And if that is so, is there sort of a low cost alternative to bioswales that does the same thing with stormwater capture, for example, or?
not exactly as bioswale, but Gowanus Canal, they were like one of the precedents I was looking for, and they are using lots of bioswale because they have a canal that overflows during high storm water. DEP was reluctant to have that because of the high groundwater table in that neighborhood, but they insisted. It was a maintenance issue later on because DEP or parks didn't have fund to maintain it. But what Gowanus Canal did, they have a conservancy group which is doing stewardship program to maintain and have more of the bioswales and green infrastructure in there. So DEP is reluctant because the maintenance cost is larger than implementation or getting that project into that site. But there are other ways to deal with that cost too.
And typically, how deep do they go?
It depends on which neighborhood are you, like if you talk about Midtown, I think it would be like 1 feet. But if Gowanus Canal, we have like 4 or 5, they have gone to 4 or 5. So they have like huge, yeah.
This is a little bit, you brought up Gowanus, which like isn't our district, so this is a broader question, but I was wondering if we were to be able to implement a bioswale or some stormwater capture.
Right.
Is there any way that you would be able to measure the impact that our installing it in our district would then have an impact that would be beneficial to the CSOs that then run into, if people don't know what that is, they can look it up, but,
Yes, there's a tool. If you put the acreage and the site location where you're doing the bioswale, it calculates how much runoff it will consume and how much mitigation it will have to CSOs.
Okay.
But I didn't do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're
but-
also not a waterfront and
Mhm.
we're not going swimming in water after a storm, nor should anyone, but.
And that tool is by Bronx River Science, if you want that to check it out, yeah.
so I have a question for you. You have a little bit of time left before you're completed, correct?
Yep.
Is it possible for you to develop some sort of a toolkit for the indoor pops?
Yes.
I think that's what you were proposing, right? Where we could then use that in some way, maybe post on our website or something. So that would be, so I think the indoor pops is going to be more successful in MSMX than the outdoor. Because there's not as much space available.
Yeah, and I could talk to Julie and we can talk about that.
Libby.
Also, if it's easy, because that first part involved some of the like the median strips and sidewalk things that I think when some of the conversions that are gonna happen from offices.
That would
also be part of a toolkit that comes up.
But that would be a different toolkit. That would be a toolkit that would be used by transportation. I'm concerned about getting a toolkit for our land use committee.
I think that it also, if it's a conversion, it would be, if it's the office conversion into residential and they're building a POPs, then it's an outdoor POPs, that would. be
But the
something
street and
that's-
sidewalk are DOT.
Sometimes it's part of the land use thing, I understand that.
I can have that.
Anything else? Anybody else? David?
Did we, because we know that what the Broadway vision roughly is gonna look like, and that was our primary outdoor space effort
Right.
during the rezoning.
Mhm.
Do we have any idea of what the impact of that is, kind of as it's, I mean, we've only seen one piece of it, 38th to 40th Street.
Yep.
But if you kind of extrude that as your model,
Mhm.
do we have
I
any
can
sense
actually-
of that, what kind of impact that has?
I didn't calculate that, but I can do that and look at the ratio of the numbers.
Yeah, I
of,
think that'd be helpful, because
Yeah.
we already have that in our pocket, we
Yeah.
just don't know exactly what it accomplishes yet, so.
I can do that, yeah.
Good. No more questions or comments. I think we can close this out unless you have any closing statements or comments.
Thank you
just
so
like, I
much.
have 1 month left to put on my final report. If there's any recommendations you would like to send me, I can leave my email and you can do that and I can.
Send everything to Isabel, and she can forward it to approve it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Michael,
Where do we find the final report?
well,
I can send it to Isabel and then she can.
it will be to us in a month, so we can
Yeah.
give you a link for that. Okay,